In your professional judgment, would the flying public be safer if the Rotor Act were passed and ADSB in and out were required for aircraft in commercial airspace?
Thank you, Chairman Cruz, for that question. First of all, the NTSB, we don't normally endorse any legislation, but we do look at our recommendations that have been out there for some time, and I noticed some of those are included in the Rotor Act. We're always trying to have our recommendations either implemented by the regulator or legislatively by this body.
Okay, let me just try for a straightforward answer. Would the flying public be safer if ADSB in and out were required?
In the quiet tension of Washington's morning, a new set of names steps into the spotlight, each carrying the weight of national trust. From aviation safety and artificial intelligence to the economic heartbeat of America, today's hearing isn't just about appointments, it's about direction. Who will shape how we fly, how we innovate, and how we measure our nation's future? Behind the polished words and calm tones, there's a deeper contest, one between vision and politics, between innovation and control. This is Behind the Podium, where we uncover what's really happening beyond the speeches and where the truth stands taller than power.
This morning's nomination hearing, and when we have a quorum present, we will recess the hearing and move to voting out the nominees. But we'll go ahead and start the hearing while we're waiting for other members to pull out of other committees that are meeting simultaneously. And as soon as we get a quorum, we'll suspend. We now turn to this morning's nomination hearing. With us are Michael Graham, nominee for member of the National Transportation Safety Board, Ethan Klene, nominee for Associate Director of the Office of Science and Technology Policy and U.S. Chief Technology Officer, and Joyce Meyer, nominee for Undersecretary of Commerce for Economic Affairs. Mr. Graham is a safety professional and aviator who began his career in the Navy flying combat missions in Operation Desert Storm. After nearly a decade of military service, he worked at Boeing McDonnell Douglas and then at Textron Aviation, the manufacturer of the Cessna aircraft. Mr. Graham oversaw the safety, security, and standardization of all flight operations at Textron. Since January 2020, he has served as a board member on the NTSB, actively participating in on-site investigations, analyzing and approving reports, and spearheading initiatives to improve safety across the transportation sector. Our next nominee, Ethan Klene, will serve as U.S. Chief Technology Officer within OSTP. In this role, Mr. Klene will help oversee tech policy for the administration and promote development in emerging fields like artificial intelligence. We know Beijing is marshaling its state resources to become the global leader in AI by 2030. America must not fall behind. I was very encouraged by the administration's AI action plan, which OSTP helped to author, and I'm confident that Mr. Klene will be a key player in this new era of geopolitical competition. An MIT-educated nuclear scientist, Mr. Klene served in OSTP during the first Trump administration as a policy advisor to now Director Michael Kratsios. He helped draft executive orders on artificial intelligence, drones, and biotechnology. And now, beyond advancing frontier research and development, he will drive the transfer of technology from lab to market, not through the heavy hand of the state, as China is doing, but in the American way, through free enterprise. Finally, we have Joyce Meyer, whose decades of fiscal and administrative experience prepare her to oversee the census as Undersecretary of Commerce for Economic Affairs. On Capitol Hill, she served as a longtime aide to former Speaker of the House and noted fiscal wonk, Paul Ryan. In the first Trump administration, she served as a Deputy Assistant to the President for Legislative Affairs. And now, she is a Senior Advisor at the Commerce Department, currently detailed to the White House. Ms. Meyer, who holds an MBA from Georgetown, will be a steady economic hand amid potential changes in markets. I look forward to hearing from her and all of our nominees today. I now turn to Ranking Member Cantwell.
Thanks.
Thank you. Mr. Graham, we'll start with you. ADSB is a technology that can receive or transmit location, altitude, velocity to air traffic control and other nearby aircraft faster than radar or other transponders. Unfortunately, the Army Black Hawk helicopter involved in the mid-air collision above the Potomac earlier this year was not transmitting ADSB, despite operating in congested airspace with civilian aircraft. This meant the Black Hawk, which should have never been flying in that area in the first place, was completely dark to airplanes arriving at DCA. In July, I introduced the Rotor Act, which would require all aircraft, commercial, business, general aviation, and military, to transmit their locations via ADSB. Widespread adoption of ADSB will improve aviation safety, as noted by your colleague, NTSB Chair Jennifer Homendy. The NTSB has long called for broader use of ADSB. Mr. Graham, should virtually all aircraft be required to transmit their locations via ADSB and to receive ADSB signals from nearby aircraft?
Chairman Cruz, thank you for that question. First of all, as far as ADSB goes, with respect to the accident, it'd be inappropriate for me to draw any conclusions at that point because it hasn't been presented to the board as a final report with probable cause and conclusions, findings, recommendations. But as far as ADSB technology goes, it has an incredible safety potential if implemented correctly. I think it has great benefit for the future of being able to, for airports that don't have ground radar or any other kind of radar. I think those systems that are called the SAI initiative that the FAA is putting in control towers, I think is great. The problem they have right now is they haven't put any warning or caution systems, either audio or visual, for the controllers to alert the controller that there might be an impending incursion. I've seen some of the technology that some of the avionics manufacturers are using it for in the cockpit, which is one of our recommendations that go back to 2000, that we ask for not just the control towers to have this data and be able to see aircraft, but also in the cockpit so pilots can start reacting quicker than waiting for a controller to tell them. So I believe in ADSB technology in the future, and I do think, especially in Class B airspace, in my personal opinion, all aircraft should have that on and when they're operating in that area.
In your professional judgment, would the flying public be safer if the Rotor Act were passed and ADSB in and out were required for aircraft in commercial airspace?
Thank you, Chairman Cruz, for that question. First of all, the NTSB, we don't normally endorse any legislation, but we do look at our recommendations that have been out there for some time, and I noticed some of those are included in the Rotor Act. We're always trying to have our recommendations either implemented by the regulator or legislatively by this body.
Okay, let me just try for a straightforward answer. Would the flying public be safer if ADSB in and out were required?
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Klene, in your role at OSTP during the first Trump administration, you advanced the nation's AI strategy through the American AI Initiative and helped establish the tenets outlined in the 2020 National Artificial Intelligence Initiative Act. Some of those tenets were abused by the Biden administration. For instance, the Biden administration diverted NIST from its job of developing technical standards to policing what they called disinformation and stereotyping in AI, both of which were masked up censorship. As stakeholders and lawmakers talk about wanting to more tightly regulate AI, they should keep in mind that the last time Congress authorized AI standards-related activity, the American AI Initiative ended up being used by woke leftists in the Biden administration to guard against supposed harms like misgendering on ChatGPT or ChatGPT downplaying climate change. Thankfully, the Trump administration has put a stop to this nonsense and is stamping out woke AI. Why do you think the core tenets of the 2020 National AI Initiative Act, based on OSTP's earlier work, were implemented in unexpected ways during the Biden administration? Was that a departure from the statute, or a result of the law's open-ended language, and how can we guard against it moving forward?
Chairman Cruz, thank you for your question. I had been involved in drafting of the 2019 executive order, which was the first ever signed by a president on artificial intelligence. And the language that we had used at that time was seeking to reduce barriers to safe testing and deployment that would help enable an industry adoption and ensure public trust in these technologies. In my personal belief, I think NIST, as a former National Bureau of Standards, is an excellent place to do use case and sector-specific standards that can help enable industry adoption and enable public trust. I think that the position of this administration is very much focused on that in terms of the America's AI Action Plan and the task specifically given to the Office of Science and Technology Policy in issuing an RFI that will seek to identify those kinds of barriers and places where we may need either deregulatory action, greater use of exemptions, waivers, or regulatory sandboxing, or places where we may actually need more regulatory clarity to, again, ensure industry adoption and public trust in this technology.
Thank you. Ranking Member Cantwell.
The Senate hearing room hums with restrained tension. Morning light filters through tall windows, casting long lines across the chamber floor. Staffers shuffle papers, cameras pan to waiting senators, and the faint echo of whispered strategy fills the space. Then the gavel falls. Chairman Ted Cruz opens the floor, marking the beginning of a nomination hearing that may quietly define the next phase of America's policy direction. Before the senators sit three nominees, Michael Graham, Ethan Klene, and Joyce Meyer, each chosen for a position that carries enormous national significance. On paper, it's a simple hearing to confirm appointments, but beneath the formalities, this is a moment that intertwines politics, technology, safety, and trust, the very veins of American governance. Cruz begins by introducing the nominees. Michael Graham, a decorated Navy aviator who flew combat missions in Operation Desert Storm, has spent his career living by the rules of discipline and precision. From McDonnell Douglas to Textron Aviation, his record reads like a manual of responsibility and risk management. Since 2020, he has served as a board member at the National Transportation Safety Board, NTSB, one of the few agencies that exist solely to understand failure so others can avoid it. Beside him sits Ethan Klene, a nuclear scientist and policy mind from MIT, nominated as U.S. Chief Technology Officer under the Office of Science and Technology Policy. His expertise lies in innovation, in shaping how America navigates the rapid rise of artificial intelligence and frontier technology. And finally, Joyce Meyer, poised to become Undersecretary of Commerce for Economic Affairs, brings decades of experience managing fiscal policy, data accuracy, and economic reporting, the quiet backbone of national decision-making. The chairman wastes no time setting the tone. "We'll begin with aviation," he says, his voice firm. The issue, the tragic mid-air collision over the Potomac earlier this year involving an Army Black Hawk helicopter and civilian aircraft. Cruz's focus narrows on one detail, the absence of ADS-B technology on the Black Hawk. ADS-B, short for Automatic Dependent Surveillance Broadcast, allows aircraft to transmit and receive location, altitude, and velocity data, enabling controllers and pilots to see nearby aircraft in real time. The Black Hawk wasn't transmitting that data. It was invisible to the planes around it, a ghost in the skies. Cruz lays the groundwork for his proposed Rotor Act, legislation that would require all aircraft, including military ones, to use ADS-B technology when operating in shared airspace. He argues that it's not just a technical fix, it's a matter of life and death. Graham, measured and precise, acknowledges the complexity but stands firm in principle. As far as ADS-B technology goes, he says, it has incredible safety potential if implemented correctly. He goes on to explain how both air traffic controllers and pilots could benefit from having real-time positional data, emphasizing that in congested airspace, every second counts. When Cruz presses for a direct answer, would the flying public be safer if ADS-B in and out were required, Graham doesn't hesitate. Yes, one word. But that word echoes. The room falls silent for a moment. That yes isn't just a technical endorsement. It's a moral one. It's the kind of clarity Washington rarely gets, unfiltered, grounded in logic, and stripped of politics. Cruz, satisfied, moves on. But the exchange underscores something deeper. America's safety infrastructure often evolves not by innovation alone, but by insistence, by lawmakers willing to demand accountability before tragedy repeats itself. The focus then shifts to the second nominee, Ethan Klene, and the conversation turns from the skies above to the servers below, from aviation to artificial intelligence. Cruz's questions draw on a broader anxiety gripping the world, the race for dominance in AI. Beijing, Cruz says pointedly, is marshaling its state resources to become the global leader in AI by 2030. America must not fall behind. Klene's credentials seem tailor-made for this fight. A policy veteran from the Trump administration, he helped craft the first-ever American AI initiative, designed to accelerate responsible innovation while protecting national interests. But Cruz isn't here to hand out praise. He's here to draw contrasts. He accuses the Biden administration of twisting that initiative into a tool for censorship. Under their direction, Cruz claims, the National Institute of Standards and Technology, NIST, shifted from developing neutral technical standards to enforcing ideological ones, targeting disinformation and bias in AI systems. To Cruz, it's an alarming overreach, a transformation of scientific research into political policing. He cites examples: AI models being penalized for misgendering, or for downplaying climate change, or for reflecting data that doesn't align with progressive ideology. Thankfully, Cruz adds sharply, the Trump administration has put a stop to this nonsense and is stamping out woke AI. The hearing room feels heavier now. The air is less about code and algorithms, more about philosophy and power. What is AI supposed to serve? Truth or conformity? Klene answers with diplomacy and restraint. He recalls his role in crafting the 2019 executive order on AI, emphasizing that the goal was always to reduce barriers to safe testing and deployment, and to ensure both public trust and private sector growth. He praises NIST's scientific rigor and calls for regulatory sandboxing, allowing innovation to advance while safety is tested in controlled environments. Yet, beneath his careful tone, there's a subtle acknowledgement. The more government steps into defining morality and technology, the closer it gets to defining the boundaries of thought itself. That is the silent war being fought here, not between parties, but between two visions of freedom. One that believes innovation must be guided by moral oversight, and another that insists innovation itself is the moral good, that a free society must trust the process of discovery, not the politics of fear. As Cruz's questioning concludes, the camera pans to the third nominee, Joyce Meyer. Her nomination doesn't stir the same fireworks as AI or aviation safety, but its implications are enormous. As Undersecretary of Commerce for Economic Affairs, Meyer would oversee the Census Bureau and the nation's most vital statistical agencies. Her responsibility? To tell America what America looks like, its jobs, its growth, its challenges. In an era where misinformation spreads faster than facts, data itself has become a battlefield. Meyer's resume is steeped in fiscal experience. She served under Paul Ryan, the former Speaker of the House known for his meticulous budget discipline, and later worked in legislative affairs at the White House. Her background makes her a symbol of technocratic steadiness, the kind of official who believes numbers don't lie, even when politicians do. Cruz praises her composure, describing her as a steady economic hand amid potential changes in markets. That phrase captures the heart of her nomination. As inflation, digital currency debates, and supply chain disruptions shape the future, the person controlling the nation's data must be both unflinching and apolitical. By the time the hearing nears its end, a pattern emerges. Each nominee represents a critical arena of national resilience: safety, innovation, and stability. Together, they form a triad of what keeps America functioning in the face of uncertainty. Yet, the unspoken tension remains: whether the machinery of government will serve truth and progress or bend under politics and perception. The gavel eventually rises again. The hearing is set to pause until a quorum can vote. Staffers gather papers, senators murmur to aides, and the cameras fade to black. But in those few hours of testimony, the outlines of the next chapter in American governance have already been drawn. Michael Graham stands for the courage to demand safety before tragedy. Ethan Klene embodies the struggle to innovate without ideological interference. Joyce Meyer reflects the quiet strength of economic transparency in an age of doubt. And behind every exchange, behind every cautious answer and pointed question, lies the enduring truth of the American system, that power, even when dressed in civility, must always face scrutiny. Because beyond the sound bites, beyond the headlines, beyond the walls of that hearing room, one thing remains constant: the pursuit of accountability. And that's what this moment truly represents. Not politics as spectacle, but governance as duty. A reminder that every hearing, every confirmation, every word spoken behind the podium is part of a larger conversation about who we are and what kind of nation we intend to be. This is the story unfolding behind the podium, where truth still stands taller than power.